it's Kilobyte here. I've got a 95 Mazda 626 and I'm going to be changing the alternator and the air conditioning belts on this morning. And this is on the 4-cylinder. This is the what is it, a 16 valve? I think it's a 2 liter. If you got a 95-ish Mazda 66 with 4-cylinder, this is probably the same thing. But the couple tips here: if this is your only vehicle, make sure you have the belts first, and make sure. See if that'll focus on the number. Make sure that it will that they actually look like they fit. So you may not be able to trial fit them, but try to make sure they are different widths. So you can see the one for the air conditioner is wider than the one for the alternator, slightly. So make sure that you have the right ones as much as you can tell prior to doing the work. So here are the tools you're going to need. This is actually a 10 mil socket, a 12 mil, a 14 mil. I did use a short extension at one point, and then I have 14 mil wrenches. And I use a 16 for when you see in the video to get a little extra leverage. It doesn't have to be a 16, but it's got to be something a 16 or bigger. The belts that I used are here. Sorry, I do not remember which one was for which. Watch the video, I guess, and you'll see. I think you can tell which one from the video. Anyway, there you go. So the first thing I'm going to do is, using a 10 mil socket, I'm going to remove this plastic safety shield and get that out of the way. So the next bolts you'll want to deal with are 14 mil. You have that one right there. Right here, you'll want to loosen it. You don't have to take it off. And then, I'm hoping I can show this on video. Hopefully it'll show up. So you'll see a long, oddly shaped bolt down there that's also 14 mil. It's in a horrible place to get to. What I do for it is I use a box end on that, angled box end on the bolt, and then I actually put a hook a box end over the wrench here to create some more leverage, because this one is, like I said, it's pretty tight. Now I have already loosened it using the other technique. So it'll probably just turn now, but let's see. Like I said, it's a bit of a bear. You don't want it, so when you put it back on, don't over tighten it. So hopefully this is showing up. Then you hook this like so, and turn. Hopefully you won't have to force it too much. As it is, it's kind of already cutting into the metal of the wrench. But that's how, there's the bolt. So that's how I am loosening that up. Alright, so broken those loose. You have the pivot bolt loose. You've got the bolt down here that locks it. Still won't move. It's just not moving. Alright, so on these there is, and I'm hoping you can see it, right here, there's a bolt that goes in, and this allows you to, the idea is to make it easier to fine tune them, to adjust them. However, oh man, it's a pain. It's going to be another 14 mil. If you have hopefully a ratcheting wrench that you can get on here, because you're going to be turning this thing forever. And you do want to turn it counterclockwise to loosen it. It's counterclockwise to loosen it. It's not. Sorry, I hope that wasn't giving anyone migraines or flashbacks to Nam. Here we are. So it will get easier to turn, but yeah, you will be cranking on this thing for 5 minutes to get it loose enough to pull the belt off. So yeah, just keep loosening. Oh, and one quick tip: if you want to hit that adjustment bolt with a little bit of WD-40 or some kind of lubricant, primarily on the bottom, the side you can't see, the other end, that will make it easier to turn. Eventually you'll get it where you can turn it with your hands, which is a whole lot faster than turning it with the wrench. That will then allow you to, well, pull the belt over the edge. You'll then have to work it out from the bottom. So the belt is off of the air conditioner and power steering, and I believe it is that the one that does the water pump? No. Alternator and water pump share the same belt. Alternator is back here. Your water pump, sorry, I'll try to keep the camera from moving too fast, is right there. And on the alternator side, you have right here is a 12 mil, and then that is the lock bolt, and you got another adjuster right here, like on the front, and way down, see where the wrench is? Way down here, here's the wrench. It is on a 14 mil that, I'll try to drop the camera in there, but I don't think it's going to show. So there's 14 mil creative camera work, 101. So you got a 14 mil down there. You've got to break that one loose. You don't have to take that one out. That's the pivot bolt. Break it loose. Then you'll use a 12 mil on this one. Break it loose. This one you want a little bit more loose than the pivot bolt. Pivot bolt does not have to be real loose. In fact, don't loosen it too much. This one here though, loosen it up. You can have it 1/16 of an inch out, not a problem. Then we'll start actually loosening it with this adjuster. Alright, so I've broken mine loose. I will tell you here, the light will cooperate, that I just lightly spray some WD-40 here. I hit this side, you can't see because of the light, right there, and then I hit this a little bit, and I use WD-40 or whatever lubricant you want to use. But I do know that WD-40 is non-conductive, and that's your alternator. So you don't want to get conductive stuff to drip in there. You could short it out. And replacing the alternator is a bear on this car if you've not done it. When I did it, I had to take it out from underneath. Now, just to pull back out here, yeah, you can see that it's not necessarily very low on the engine. But there's just no room to bring it up unless you want to take like the intake off. So what I did is I took the exhaust off and pulled it out from underneath. There's a tip for that in case you ever have to do it. It's fun, especially when you're in a parking lot. Alright, this one is a whole lot easier to turn because you've got a little more room if you work from the bottom, and on mine at least, I didn't have to loosen it up a whole lot before I was able to turn it. That probably tells me that my belt was a little loose, which may be why it was squeaking. A couple things cause squeak. Your bad belts, just worn out belts, cheap belts can cause it. Too loose of a belt can cause it, but you don't want to over tighten them either. That's the whole trick, because you don't want to wear out the bearings on like your alternator, your air conditioner, any of that. Water pump, that's always a good one. But it is now loose, so I will take, and if I can keep the camera in focus, and flip it over. Boom. Over here, water pump. And okay, it's right here, and you've got lots of room to work, so don't worry about this. As long as you're, 12 years old, you can get those hands in there, no problem. So now it's not that bad. So I now have my belts out. So a quick tip before you try to put them on: take a new one and the old one. Stay in camera and verify that they're pretty darn close, and these are. And you can tell, hopefully this shows up, there's a big difference in the quality of these belts, and hopefully that will help resolve the squeaking. Alright, so now we put everything back in reverse order. So we'll start with the alternator water pump belt. We'll slide that in there, and yes, we then have to get it all wrapped around the same places that the old one came out of. It's not that bad, but it's a tight fit. Oh, and one important thing: belts must go on in a certain direction, and that's with the label facing you. Alright, I am completely kidding about that. It does not matter what direction they go. Makes no difference, so don't worry about that. So you're going to be doing a lot of reaching, trying to get this thing in there. Make sure you have it in the proper place on the pulleys. This is especially important on the bottom one. I mean, I had to go way around underneath, and it probably isn't showing up well on the camera, but I had to reach way under here to make sure that it was on the center of the pulley. And the cameras just won't show it. It's not a good light. Just make sure you got it. And then with your hand, pull back here, then start tightening it. That way the belt, pulling it taut by hand will keep the belt pretty much on, and as you tighten it, you don't need a lot of pressure to hold it in place. You will need to make sure that when you did loosen it, so it's a used belt, they stretch. So when you took it off, if you did it just enough to take it off, you're going to have to do it some more before you can get it on. In fact, I do it so that the bolt is actually all the way into the little block here. That gives you enough room where you don't have to crank on those belts with a screwdriver or anything. You do not want to have to do that. So now I've got that snug. Now I'm going to move. Now I could tighten it now, but I'm going to go ahead and move to the other belt and get it on. So both belts are on now. They are just hand tight. Like I did the same. There's the adjustment bolt. Maybe you can see it. Hand tighten that. Verify everything is in place. Now you see how this wiggles. I don't like that, but that's the pivot bolt, and this is on this end. They don't really have a good. It's not a tight fit, so it's annoying to me. So that's why I say you don't want them too. Pivot bolts, you don't want them too loose, but they got to be loose enough. Even then, it won't. It's got to be loose enough so that you can adjust them. So now I'm going to do as the last step when you're taking them off is adjusting this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adjusting that. Now, if you have a belt tension measurer, they do make such a thing. Yes, great, use it. If you have that, you're probably not watching this video. So what you want to do is I put my finger underneath the belt and I lift up. That's what I do. You can push down as well. And as you can see, there's a lot of movement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten this until the belt is taut. When I say taut, it's going to move some, but it's only going to move maybe a 1/4 inch. And I'll try to demonstrate that when we get there. So the alternator belt and stuff is tight. When I say tight, I hope this shows. So you can see when I push, the belt moves, but it doesn't move real far. I mean, it's kind of you just gotta. There's a feel that you just gotta get if you don't have a measure. You don't want it too tight. You wear the bearings out and stuff on your water pumps and alternators and air conditioner compressors, but you don't want it too loose. Then it'll squeal, and this may still be a tad loose. They will also stretch because they're new belts. So I'm going to turn this adjustment bolt in a little more, and that is clockwise to tighten it. Come back. And it's just marginally more tight. You got to turn this a fair bit in order to get it to really tighten much. I'm hoping that you can see the bolt. Hopefully you can see the bolt in there. Yeah, I tried. You can see it, you just can't see all of it. Yeah, so tighten it up to a reasonable amount, but don't over tighten. You can always retighten it if it's squeaking and things, and you will want to, after driving it a few times, say a week, depending on how often you drive, of course, but a week or 1,000 miles, no more than 1,000 miles, recheck them. Make sure that they're still reasonably tight. So I'm going to finish tightening this just a little more, and then I'll hit the pivot bolt and then the locking bolt on the bottom. Oh, and I should mention, if the device, so on these I said I'll hit the pivot bolt first. Well, the ones that have this, I actually do the pivot bolt first because that has the most play, and then I do the locking. If it did not have one of these, you actually do the locking bolt to adjust the tightness of the belt. So you would actually have to pry it out with something like a screwdriver or a pry bar to get tension on this. Then tighten the locking bolt. You would then tighten the pivot bolt. So this, while it's a pain, it is a lot easier in some aspects. Alright, no more squeak. I have yet to put on the safety cover that will go there. Keep your fingers from going in there or dropping something on it, I suppose. But yeah, no squeak, and like I said, we'll drive it for a few days. I'd say actually, I said no more than 1,000 miles. You know, a few days, a couple hundred miles or so. You know, you always want to check your belts with your same time you check your oil. There's no reason not to. So hopefully you're doing that in a, you know, reasonable time frame, depending on what kind of, if your car burns oil or whatever. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. So that's how you change them, and hopefully that's helpful to somebody. And if so, please like, subscribe, comment, and good luck on yours.